Before we get started, I have a message for Jeff Fuller and his team of writers.
All right. And I hope you get shoved right into your.
Wow. Well, that was definitely.
Alright, so I just got back from seeing Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and I think based on that, you guys can probably guess what I thought of the film. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, folks. I absolutely hated this movie. Like, with all the Sonic movies that have come out, and also the Knuckles series, I haven't really liked any of them. But it wasn't really a hatred for them, it was just indifference towards them. I was just disappointed that I didn't outright love any of these movies, because Sonic, it is my favorite franchise. Sonic is my favorite character, period. So the fact that so little effort was being put into his big screen adaptation just really rubbed me the wrong way. And then I saw this movie, and instead of indifference, I felt nothing but hatred. Like, it has been a long time since I have hated a piece of media as much as this one. And I'm honestly trying to contain myself right now because, like, I'm fresh off my viewing of it, and like, I'm just super pissed off with it. All right, so let's try to be constructive about this. So, in the film, the grandfather of Dr. Robotnik, Professor Gerald Robotnik, breaks Shadow the Hedgehog out of a gun facility, and immediately the two go to work trying to obtain what they need to gain control of a doomsday weapon that Professor Gerald invented, so that they may exact vengeance upon humanity for taking everything that they love from them. Sonic Team is, of course, down to stop them, but they are, of course, no match for them. And upon realizing that, they find themselves teaming up with Eggman, who doesn't last long as an ally because it isn't long before he starts following the way of Professor Joe Robotnik as well. Okay, so before I get into what really pushed me to hate this movie, like, let's just be honest. This film did exactly what I knew it was going to do. It took one of the darkest, most emotional, most complex, and most sophisticated stories in the Sonic mythos and made a complete and utter mockery of it. It's like, from day one of my big issues with this film franchise has been that they have not taken the source material seriously by any stretch of the imagination. So when I heard that they were doing the storyline from Sonic Adventure 2 with Shadow, Maria, Gerald Robotnik, all that stuff, I was absolutely terrified because I just did not think that this team of writers had it in them to do that story justice. And they didn't. Like, they missed the mark so much with this one. And God, where do I even start with it? I guess I should start with Professor Gerald Robotnik and Maria. They have just been completely butchered from their video game counterparts. The thing about Professor Gerald Robotnik is that he is, he was in essence a saint on Earth. The whole reason that he started Project Shadow in the video games was so that he could find a cure for an illness that Maria had that would forever confine her to life on the space colony Ark. He was doing that for her, but also for the good of humanity as well, and the lengths that he was willing to go to achieve such a noble goal was very touching, and that made it all the more tragic when everything he did made Gunn turn on him and caused this horrible accident that not only destroyed the vast majority of his research, but also led to the death of the thing he held most dear, which was Maria. And the fact that he was willing to forsake everything that he believed in following her passing, it was just one of the saddest moments in the entire series. So imagine how frustrating it was for me to find that Professor Gerald, as depicted in this movie, is a complete lunatic. Like, all he is just an older, fatter ape man who is far more bloodthirsty. This guy just wants to destroy humanity for taking Maria from him. And I get the sense that they're trying to make the guy sympathetic, but he is just not. And it also doesn't help that there is just way too much of him and Dr. Robotnik just clowning around in this movie, and it's like, oh my god, everything that was bad about Sonic 2, like all the worst parts of that movie were just cranked up to 11 with those scenes. And Maria, the character, is also really shallow. Like, the connection she and Shadow had in the games, it mostly came about because they were both isolated to the space colony Earth. They didn't really know any kind of life outside of that. They grew a bond because they were the only people that they had in their life, aside from the professor. Now, like, they don't even bring... I'm honestly struggling to just articulate why this frustrates me so much. Like, they just the only thing that they cared about from the Sonic Adventure 2 storyline, and by extension the Shadow the Hedgehog storyline, because that's a big part of the story as well, is Shadow himself. And I guarantee that is the only reason that they decided to do the storyline, because they wanted to have Shadow in the movie. They wanted to have him fight Sonic. And you know what? By all means, because initially I thought it was really cool. Like, there's a great scene in Tokyo where Sonic and Shadow fight, and it is absolutely amazing. I loved it. But then we get to the part of the movie that made me really, really, really hate it. And that ended up being the thing that I could not stand about these films from day one, and that is the portrayal of Sonic. In this film, everything that Sonic represents to me and what he should represent to everyone else is just completely wrong. Like, and I knew this was going to happen in the trailers too, because one of the things that they brought up in the trailer was some aggravating parallels between Sonic and Shadow. The fact that whereas when Sonic came to Earth, he found a family and what have you, and that's why he turned into a good person, whereas Shadow found nothing but pain and suffering, and that's why he ended up the way he did. Again, that's not really what's supposed to happen when Sonic and Shadow collide. The thing is, we know everything about Shadow. We know what his motives are. We know why he is the way he is. But the other side of that coin is we don't know a whole lot about Sonic. And what's interesting about that is Sonic doesn't really know what the deal with Shadow is. But the thing is, he doesn't really care either. The only reason Sonic is trying to stop Shadow is because Shadow is trying to hurt people. He's trying to rob people of Earth of the freedom to be good people, the things that Sonic believes in most. Yet, like, I can't even articulate that right. Like, I am just fuming, right, with what they chose to do with Sonic in this movie. And I guess I should say this, spoiler alert. So, where the film really lost me was a scene towards the middle where Sonic, Tails and Knuckles, as well as Donut Lord and Pretzel Lady, break into a gun facility. And in the series of events that occurs because of that, which a lot is just absolutely ridiculous, as awesome as it should have been, it wasn't. Donut Lord ends up getting injured by Shadow, critically injured, like he's fighting for his life, as Sonic puts it. And when that happens, Sonic snaps, and he decides that he's going to use the Master Emerald to go supersonic, not so that he can stop Robotnik, not so that he can stop Shadow, not so that he can save the life of everybody on Earth. He wants to go supersonic so that he can get revenge on Shadow. Have you guys never played a Sonic game before? Have you never read a comic book? Have you never watched any of the TV shows? That is not Sonic. You know what Sonic would have done in that situation? He would have made sure Donut Lord is alright, and then he would have gone to stop them. There would have not been any hesitation there. He wouldn't have done that. And I know what a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, that's the lesson of the movie. Okay, but you shouldn't have done it like this. Sonic is a character who just would not do that. He knows what's right, he knows what's wrong, and he will not deviate that in any capacity. That's why when Shadow comes into the picture, that it's so interesting, because like Shadow in a lot of ways is what Sonic could be if he didn't have his moral compass. But later on, when you really analyze the characters, it's not necessarily that Shadow is what Sonic could be if he was evil. It's more like Sonic is what Shadow could be if he wasn't evil. Again, we aren't supposed to know what Sonic's backstory is, so we don't know what his past is. So as far as we know, he's just doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. So again, like that old Joker saying, all it takes for Batman to be like the Joker is one bad day. A character in the Archie comics has said that to Sonic, and it does not reign true for Sonic, because no matter what happens to him, he is not going to break. And that's, again, why his battles with Shadow carry so much weight, because Sonic is a character who refuses to compromise on his moral principles, whereas Shadow is a character who compromised. He did have beliefs, he did have right and wrong. He shared Professor Gerald's belief that science could benefit humanity. He basically existed knowing that his purpose was to help Maria. And like, that scene just, it just flat out pissed me off. Like, I have said from day one that they never got the portrayal of Sonic right. This is an outright insult to that character, and because of that, I couldn't finish the movie. I walked out of that theater. As soon as Sonic went supersonic, bust through that window, and started fighting with Shadow, instead of stopping the damn space laser, that is where I cut out, because it was just clear to me that as I said in earlier videos, part of the reason Sonic holds so much meaning for me as a character is because he taught me the reason you do the right thing. You do the right thing because it's the right thing. You do not need another reason. Rewards, acknowledgement, any of that stuff, it does not matter. You do it because it's right. Just the fact that they felt the need to portray Sonic as someone who needed to learn this lesson, rather than someone who had already learned that lesson, and therefore was able to instill it onto a character who had been through so much pain in his life. I'm just done. I have tolerated these movies long enough, but I am just done. Like, I did not finish the movie. I don't care if Sonic had a change of heart. I don't care if he and Shadow teamed up to save the day. I don't care if Donut Lord survives. Like, it's just not a Sonic movie. It might look like a Sonic movie. It might at times sound like a movie. Like, they even had music from the freaking games for once, a lot of it. And it was just set dressing. Even Sonic fighting Shadow, it's just set dressing because it's clear that they don't understand. And you know what? It's probably worse than the fact that they don't understand. It's not that they don't understand. is that they just don't care. And if that's how they feel, then neither do I. So, yeah, I'm done with this film franchise. Like, if you guys go to see this movie, which I'm going to recommend you guys don't, but I know everyone who is watching this probably already has or plans to. If you enjoy it, by all means, I envy you, but I just can't tolerate that they did this to Sonic. It's not him. That's going to do it for this one, guys. I'll see you next time.